Hold on. Something doesn't feel quite right. Not quite sure what it is. Just give me 1 second while I check on something. That's better. Don't worry, don't adjust your set. It's still me. Hello everybody, welcome to the re-review, the series where I get to replay and reassess games from my favourite gaming era. I'm Brian, also known as UKGN Zoidberg, and after visiting Timeless Gaming a few weeks ago, I've now caught a case of convention fever. Getting to shake the hands of TV's Jason Bradbury, play a number of pre-release indie games, and meet up again with the guys from Amiga Addict, it's really made me realise what I've been missing these past few years. And going forward, I'm going to try and get to more gaming conventions if I can, starting with the Play Expo in October. If you're new to this channel, this series is one where I go back through the issues of the magazines that I used to write for and check whether or not the reviews that I wrote back in the day are still valid all these years later. In today's episode, I'm going to be looking back at my review of Realms, which was developed by Graftgold and published by Virgin Games in January 1992. This is not the first time that I've covered a game by Graftgold on the re-review. Way back in episode 12, I talked about my review of Fire and Ice and did a profile of that game's creator, Andrew Braybook. However, that was only half the story. The company was actually founded by Steve Turner in 1983 as ST Software. He was offered a contract by Hewson Consultants after they published his first game, 3D Space Wars, for the ZX Spectrum, and this was swiftly followed a year later by 3D Lunar Attack. Next up was Avalon, a game that really put Steve Turner's name on the map. It was well received by both Crash and Sinclair user magazines, and also won the Game of the Month from CMVG. Between them, Turner and Braybook developed a number of hit games for Hewson, sometimes providing the graphics and music for each other's titles, as well as converting them to other systems. They were later joined by Dominic Robinson, creator of Synapse for the Spectrum. The name Graftgold first appeared on 1986's Uridium. The name was derived from the idea that in order to make great games, it required a lot of graft and a sprinkling of gold. Or at least that's what they mentioned in an interview in Games X magazine at least. Thanks to the likes of Paradroid, Quasitron and Ranarama, their name quickly became a stamp of quality. In the latter half of the 80s, financial difficulties at Hewson led to them signing a deal with British Telecom Soft to publish their games under the Firebird and Rainbird labels. These included the excellent 8-bit versions of Toplan's Flying Shark arcade game. Turner programmed the Amstrad version, whereas Robinson made the excellent Spectrum version. That Spectrum version would go on to receive a maximum 10 out of 10 score in Sinclair user. Graftgold's first game for the Amiga was the arcade conversion of Ivan Ironman Stewart's Super Off-Road, which was published by Virgin. Around the same time as that game's release, Braybook was working on home versions of Taito's Rainbow Islands. But at the time, Telecom Soft were in the middle of being sold to Microprose, so that game ended up being completed and sat on the shelf for well over a year. Eventually, it was rescued and published by Ocean Software in 1990. There were a number of original creations produced during this time as well, including the 3D shooter Simulacra and a sequel to Paradroid. But then, thanks to the success of games like Populous and SimCity, Turner was able to return to an idea that he'd been thinking about since the early days of the Spectrum. First previews of Realms started to appear in magazines in early 1991, with the game eventually hitting shelves just after Christmas that year. Next came Fire and Ice, which was published by Renegade in late 1992. Renegade also went on to publish the long-awaited sequel to Uridium in 1993, as well as Virocop in 1995. They also found time to make a football game during this period, but since Renegade had just published Sensible Soccer, that game ended up being shipped around other publishers, eventually landing at Empire Interactive. Empire Soccer 94 came out just in time for the World Cup of that year, and is well worth checking out in my opinion. Over the next few years, Graftgold struggled to make the jump to consoles, only making the Otifants for Sega. The final two games were out on the PlayStation. The first, a conversion of Rainbow Islands, was bundled in a double pack with Bubble Bobble, and the second, International Motocross, was published by Acclaim. After an attempt to save the company by Perfect 10 Entertainment fell through, Graftgold finally closed their doors for good in 1998. That, however, is not the end. On July the 27th this year, Turner announced that he was making his triumphant return to gaming. The newly registered Graftgold Studios Limited are currently putting the finishing touches to their first game, Deepest Blue, which is an update of Turner's first game, 3D Space Wars. I personally can't wait to play it and see what they come up with next. Now though, let's go back and see what I said about Realms in my original review. I reviewed Realms in issue 32 of Games X from December 1992. Oh No More Lemmings from Psygnosis was the cover game of that issue, as well as the recipient of our Game of the Week award. Other Amiga games reviewed in that issue included Fuzzball, Epic, Cisco Heat and WWF WrestleMania. 3 of those I've covered on the re-review already. I pointed out that Realms was arriving at a time when the strategy and simulation genre was thriving. Both Megalomania and Utopia had just been released, and Populous 2 was just over the horizon. However, I felt that Realms had just enough to stand out against the competition. I praised the game's presentation, stating that the isometric map was both clearly laid out and smoothly scrolling. All of the other screens were also simple to use and featured good looking characters and buildings. I also liked the difficulty curve and said that the 8 different scenarios available would offer plenty of challenge to seasoned strategy players. The game will finish with you as the victor or the vanquished. With 8 scenarios, each taking hours to complete, you should be fighting for a long time to come. I scored it 4.5 X's out of 5 overall, which earned it an X-rated award. Both lastability and gameplay earned 17 out of 20, with presentation scoring 1 lower at 16 out of 20. Here's how my score compares to the ones that appeared in other Amiga magazines. From a total of 8 reviews, it scored an impressive average of 81.5%. Now let's load the game up and see how it plays today. It's time for the playtest. Yes, this is not the most technically impressive intro sequence that you can imagine, but I think it does a pretty decent job of setting the atmosphere for what's to come. Now I have got a copy of the game's manual open in Adobe Acrobat next to the screen as I'm playing this. I downloaded the game from my abandonware, but I had to search around and eventually found the manual on the Hall of Light website. So when you start the game, it dumps you straight into the introductory world, which is what this is, and this is your fortress screen. Obviously that's your save game button. This one will show you where your armies are, so those flags show that I've got an army in my capital city and in one of the other cities. This one will show you the tax routes, which apparently are very important. Whenever you're on this screen, all the action in the game is paused, so nothing will be happening right now. If I click on this crystal ball, this will allow me to then click on a city and see the game world. Now time is now moving forward. This is my capital city. If I click on it, this is the capital city screen. There are 1,000 militia available for recruitment. I've only got 1 year's worth of grain, so I think I am going to buy some grain so that we've got 2 years worth. This is where you can choose your armor and weapons that your people carry. Don't click on this icon here, because that will then disband the army that you are creating. And this hand here shows you how much your army are going to get paid. So I'm going to pay them 1 gold coin. Then if I click here, that will create an additional army outside my castle, which is there. So I'm going to move them over to this one over here, because there are no defense on that city, and that's the one that's closest to the enemy. I think I'm also going to create... This one is not a very big city, so I'm going to recruit some army for this one as well. So this button here will show you where your armies currently are. You can then skip between the different cities by clicking these arrows, and pressing the door button will exit you back to the main screen that you were on previously. Oh, that's now flashing, so something is happening. City is under siege. So I got the army there just in time, because the enemy's army are arriving. City are also under siege up at that top army as well, so it was a good job I recruited somebody up there. Oh, but now we go into a battle screen. got quite a lot of soldiers on this one. I want to attack that army with my cavalry, and let's throw some spears at them. As you can see, the sound effects are not very lively. It's just a few little tiny clinking of swords, and that's about it. The enemy army seem to be retreating. My army is victorious. Yay. So I have no real idea how the tax routes work on this thing. Let's see what the manual has to say about it, shall we? A realm comprises at least one city which has a capital and which flows all tax acquired from other city. Selecting this icon will show the map and the tax flow from city to city. Ultimately, the capital city for the realm is currently selected. The empire can be streamlined by changing the tax flow routes with the tax flow route indicator. Okay, so you need to go to each city. And if you click on the citizen levy, that puts money into your overall cash flow. Right, okay. So let's try and attack one of their cities. So there's no army there waiting for that one. Let's go and attack that one. Why do I not have anybody attacking that city? That's where I sent my army. Why are they not attacking it? My people are starving. Oh no. Right, let's buy them some grain. How do I buy some grain? There we go. I don't like my strategy games to be too complicated, so this one is actually pretty... It's more up my alley than some. I mean, I definitely think that I prefer more of a Command and Conquer style, or even something like Megalomania over this. My city is utterly destroyed. That's not good. Oh dear. People are starving in that city, right? Okay, let's get them to pay their levy, and then buy them some grain. Another city utterly destroyed. That's not that. Oh dear. Their loyalty is diminished. Oh dear. I don't think I'm doing very well here, am I? Let's improve their health. More land is needed. Another one of my cities utterly destroyed. Well, that's... Why are my armies not taking that city? Is that the only army I've got left? It is. I think I'm in the process of dying here, aren't I? This is definitely a game that you're going to have to play for many, many hours in order to start to understand it properly. And there's probably many gamers out there, such as myself, who don't have the patience to do that. No, my capital's under siege. Oh. Right, well, I think that's probably going to be as good a place to end the playtest as any. Obviously, I'm going to be dying very, very, very soon. In fact, there we go. I have died. So that is game over. So yeah, let's move on to the final summary and see what I think of the game overall. This is where you get the other 7.
Perhaps more than anything else, Realms highlights some of the major differences between gaming in 1991 and gaming in 2024. There's simply no way that this game would get released in this state today, as there's no tutorial. The first couple of times that I loaded the game up for this video, I had no clue what I was supposed to be doing or how to play it. After downloading the game from my abandonware, I then had to search around online to try and find a copy of the manual. It comes with a 50-page manual, and I simply had to play the game with that sat next to me. I was perfectly fine at being able to control my armies and guide them around the map, as well as look after the population of my cities and buy them grain and keep them happy. However, I still have no clue how the taxation system works or how to earn money, and the manual doesn't do a very good job of explaining it. Admittedly, this is not the type of game that I play today though, and I probably had a lot more patience back in 1991 to learn it. I just wish that the game was a little bit more accessible and intuitive, as a number of times the icons that you were clicking on bear no relation to what they actually do. I still think the presentation is excellent though, with a great atmosphere provided by the animated intro sequence and Jason Page's music. Once I did start to get to grips with what I was supposed to be doing, I did start to enjoy myself. It's probably not going to be a game that I return to very often though. When it comes to the Strategy Conquest Super League, try saying that 3 times fast, I think there's enough in Realms to place it in the top half. It's probably never going to bother the games right at the top though, and I have admittedly not played that many games in this league. For today's score, I'm going to be giving it 6 out of 10, as I think there is enough here to enjoy if you've got the patience to learn it. I just think it's going to scare off newcomers. Thank you very much for watching this latest episode of the re-review and sticking around until the end. If Realms was a game that you played back in the day, I'd love to hear what your thoughts of it are. As I said many times in this video, this is not really the kind of game that I play, so if there's something that I've got wrong, please do tell me. The next episode in this series will be coming up in 2 weeks' time, and you still have time to become a member and take part in the vote to choose what game I play. You'll be able to choose between Apidia and Disposable Hero. All opinions expressed in this video are entirely mine and not those of the UK Gaming Network team. If you have missed any of the previous episodes in this series, then there should be a playlist on screen right about now where you can click on it and watch any of the previous 55 episodes. But before you do that, please remember to like and subscribe, just to show YouTube that you like what we do. If you do want to become a member, there should be a link to the membership offer in the video description. For just $1.99 a month, you not only get to vote on what games are coming up in this series, you'll also get to watch episodes of this, Retro Game Super Leagues and Best 10 earlier than anyone else, as well as exclusive video content that's just for members. I'm going to be back next Friday with the latest episode of Best 10, looking at my favourite 10 multiplayer games. Until next time, happy retro gaming, bye for now.